Hello and welcome to the session on medieval philosophers, Boethius. A biographical sketch of Boethius. In the last two units, we discussed the life, works, theological ideas, philosophical thoughts, influences and contributions of St. Augustine of Hippo. In this unit, we will look at a figure of prominence during the medieval period, Boethius. As Frederick Copleston in his History of Medieval Philosophy says, Boethius and Pseudo-Dionysius were the two channels through which the philosophy of the ancient world was passed on to the Middle Ages. His philosophical ideas were dense and complex and can be understood only by placing them in the backdrop of Platonic, Neoplatonic and Aristotelian ideas. However, this unit will try to offer a cursory understanding of his life, works, historical background, logical ideas, philosophical doctrines, his importance and influences. Boethius is considered as a major philosophical thinker after St. Augustine. His full name was Anicius Manlius Severinus Boethius, but is popularly known as Boethius. He lived during the late 5th and early 6th centuries in Rome. He was born in an aristocratic Roman family in around 480 AD and his father was a Roman consul. Boethius became an orphan at a very young age and was adopted and educated by another Roman aristocrat and historian. Boethius developed a love for literature and philosophy when he was young. What made Boethius different from both his predecessors and contemporaries was his knowledge in Greek language. Scholars who have knowledge in Greek language were becoming increasingly rare in Western Europe at that period. Some scholars believe that Boethius was educated in Athens because he was fluent in Greek language. He entered public life at a young age and became a senator by the time he was 25 years old. He started his career by entering the service of Theodoric the Great. He held many important positions and the king entrusted him with many important missions. He soon became one of the most senior officials, but other officials of the court became his enemies, probably because he attacked their corruption. He was accused of disloyalty and treason by his enemies, and the king suspected him of conspiring with the Eastern Roman Empire. As a result, Boethius was imprisoned, condemned, and later executed by the king around 525 AD. But before his death, he wrote his masterpiece titled Consolation of Philosophy, which became one of the most influential works of medieval philosophy. Works and writings of Boethius. Boethius was a versatile writer who wrote a number of books, commentaries, translations and treatises. His notable works include his literary masterpiece named The Consolation of Philosophy, translation projects, commentaries, logical textbooks and theological treatises. In this module, we will take a detailed look at how his works influenced medieval philosophy. 1. Consolation of Philosophy. History remembers Boethius for his literary masterpiece titled Consolation of Philosophy. It might interest you to know that this book was composed during the time he spent in jail awaiting trial and execution. Modern scholars consider Consolation of Philosophy as the single most influential work in the West on medieval and early Renaissance Christianity. The work can be called a philosophical treatise dealing with topics such as fortune, death and other issues. Historical context. As we have already seen, Boethius was enjoying the heights of power in Rome when he was accused of conspiracy. This fall and treachery he experienced are very well reflected in the work. In it, he reflects on various philosophical matters such as how evil exists in a world governed by God, how happiness can be attained even in the middle of misfortune, nature of happiness and the nature of God. Many scholars describe Consolation of Philosophy as most interesting example of prison literature ever produced in the history of literature. We can find lots of references to God in this book, but it cannot be called a religious book. There is no direct reference to Jesus Christ or Christianity or any other specific religion, but later philosophers have assumed several links. He described God as an eternal and all-knowing being who is the source of all good. Structure and style. Consolation of Philosophy is written in the form of a prosimetrum, that is, a prose work with verse interludes. Boethius used polished literary language to write this book. The structure and the style of the book are also interesting. It is written as an imagined dialogue between the imprisoned Boethius and Lady Philosophy. Lady Philosophy is an imaginary character who personifies philosophy. She appears to him in a vision while he is spending his time in jail under sentence of death for treason. She offers him consolation by discussing the fleeting nature of fame and wealth. The book states that happiness comes from within. He makes important observations on human virtue in the book. Virtue is the true asset of human beings because it is not destroyed by the fluctuations in fortune. Major themes. Boethius raises many questions in the book such as the nature of predestination, nature of free will, the prosperity of evil men while good men suffer, human nature, virtue and justice. The question of free will and predetermination, which was taken up by many later philosophers throughout Western philosophy, is a central theme of this book. He makes important statements of human nature. According to him, humans are basically good, but when they give in to wickedness, they stoop to the level of an animal. Another key theme of the book is justice. He used the analogy of doctor and patient to explain the relationship between criminals and prosecutors. He wrote that criminals should be treated with sympathy rather than being abused. Consolation of Philosophy contained a philosophical message which suited the religious piety of the Middle Ages. Boethius encouraged readers to stop seeking material goods such as money and power. Instead, he asked them to seek virtues. He dwelled on the nature and purpose of evil. According to him, the purpose of evil was to provide human beings a lesson that they can change for good. Suffering that is caused by evil was seen as virtuous. Heavy influence of Plato and his dialogues could be found in Consolation of Philosophy. Platonic ideas were a source of philosophic inspiration to Boethius. Scholars don't have a clear answer to why this book became so popular in the Middle Ages. Some of them say that the popularity of the book can be attributed to Neoplatonic and Christian ethical messages it contained. Natural theology. Theology can be divided into two types, revealed theology and natural theology. Revealed theology, also known as dogmatic theology, is one which answers theological questions by drawing from religious texts and scriptures. Natural theology, on the other hand, inquires into the existence of God and His attributes without referring to sacred texts or divine revelation. It is interesting to note that Boethius answered many religious questions in this book without any reference to Christianity or any appeal to the authority of Christian scripture. Instead, he relied completely on natural philosophy and the classical Greek tradition to explain his ideas. He drew from the books of Aristotle, Porphyry and other Neoplatonic thinkers. Other works of Boethius. The other works and writings of Boethius are of a different nature compared to his masterpiece. Besides Consolation of Philosophy, he was also best known for his translations and the commentaries he wrote. As we have seen, Boethius was well educated and was an expert in Greek texts and intellectual culture. He had plans to translate the entire works of Plato and Aristotle into Latin and to write commentaries on their works. However, he couldn't succeed in this project. In his lifetime, Boethius could translate and write commentaries only on Aristotle's works on logic. It should be noted that until 12th century, the major portions of Aristotle's writings were available in the Latin West through the translations done by Boethius. In addition to these translations, Boethius wrote a number of logical treatises of his own. He also wrote textbooks on arithmetic and geometry, strictly based on Greek models. He is also known for the two commentaries he wrote on the book Isagoge, which is an introduction to Aristotle's categories, written by Porphyry. In this commentary, he highlighted the existence of the problem of universals. He is also believed to have composed a textbook on music. He had also written 5 Christian theological treatises which are known as the Opuscula Sacra. Many of his works were used in the Middle Ages as standard textbooks. Boethius on the problem of the universals and free will. Apart from his masterpiece, translations, treatises and commentaries, Boethius is best known for 2 other philosophical ideas. Firstly, he is credited with introducing the problem of universals to the medieval world. Secondly, he attempted to offer an explanation to the perennial philosophical problem of the Western world, the question of free will versus divine predestination. Problem of universals. Boethius is regarded as the first medieval philosopher who introduced the problem of universals to the medieval world and systematically explored the problem. We have already seen the various philosophical positions on the problem of universal in a previous unit. We have learned that it was one of the major themes of medieval philosophy and remained a major philosophical concern throughout the history of Western philosophy. The problem runs through medieval philosophy from Porphyry in the 3rd century to William of Ockham in the 14th century. Though the problem was first raised by the Neoplatonist philosopher Porphyry in his Isagoge, it was introduced to medieval history by Boethius, who wrote commentaries on Isagoge. Before we go into Boethius' position on this major philosophical concern, let us briefly recap what exactly is the problem of universals. Problem of universals is a problem in metaphysics. The term universals refer to the qualities or relations that are shared by 2 or more entities. The problem of universals can be defined as the question of whether abstract notions such as greenness or largeness exist somewhere in reality or only in the minds of human beings. In other words, it refers to the ontological status of the universals, that is, the question of whether universals exist or not. Western philosophers of medieval period agreed that human beings talk and think about universals, but they disagreed whether they are real or exist only in human thoughts and speech. In his Isagoge, Porphyry raised 3 important questions. 1. Do universals exist, or are they simply something that exists only in human mind? 2. If they exist, are they corporeal or incorporeal? 3. Are they separated from physical things, or are they located within physical things? It is interesting to note that though he raised these 3 important questions, he never answered them. It was Boethius who tried to solve it for the first time through his commentaries on Porphyry's Isagoge. Based on some of the ideas of Porphyry, he came up with 3 possible positions on the question of universals in his second commentary on Isagoge. 1. The first position is that universals exist outside of our minds and even separately from physical bodies. For example, the universal called greenness can exist outside of our minds and separately from physical bodies such as the green tree. 2. The second position is that universals are intrinsic. In other words, they are built into physical things. That is to say, the universal greenness can be found in all green objects such as green trees and green grass. 3. The third position is that universals exist only as concepts in the human mind. They do not exist in any real way in the external world. Human beings abstract universals from particular things. For example, when we view several green trees, we form the mental abstraction of greenness. These 3 positions laid out by Boethius became the options for later medieval philosophers on the topic. Most of them accepted one out of these 3 positions. Boethius' solution to the problem of universals. Now, the question is, which of these 3 positions did Boethius take? Scholars argue that his position on the issue can be called moderate realism. According to him, universals have a two-fold nature, that is, 1. As the forms or organizing principles of individual things. 2. As universal intelligibles once they have been abstracted by the intellect. The Encyclopedia of Medieval Philosophy summarizes Boethius' solution to the problem of universals thus: Boethius developed a series of intriguing arguments in favor of the conclusion that universals do not exist outside of human mind. He argued that something can exist outside the mind only if it is a unity, but universals can't be a unity. Also, universals exhibit the property of universality, that is, they are common to many things, but everything in reality should be singular and one in number. So, universals can't exist in reality outside of human mind. However, there is a problem in this proposition as well. It is not possible to say that universals are simply mental concepts. We surely have concepts that are universal. If these concepts do not represent the world as it truly is, then these concepts appear to be empty and false. Boethius went on to give a solution to this dilemma. He argued that human mind is capable of considering things in a manner which is different from how they really exist. The mind has the power to compare and consider the features of physical things without even referring to those physical things. That means, mind can separate features from things even though those features cannot be separated from those things. It is by abstracting features from physical entities that human mind creates universal concepts. Hence, universals do not exist in the world as something which is common to many things. However, since the concept of universals is abstracted from things in the right way, they can be attributed to many things. Free will versus divine predestination. Now, we come to Boethius' approach to another major concern that troubled the Western philosophical world for centuries. That concern was the incompatibility between human free will and divine predestination. We have dealt with the theme of free will in our previous unit on the central themes of medieval philosophy. In that unit, we saw that whether free will exists or whether everything happens according to divine predestination or foreknowledge of God was one of the main debates in the medieval period. In Boethius' opinion, it is not possible to deny human free will. Boethius tackled this issue by introducing two concepts, the conditional necessity and simple necessity. The way he explained and conceptualized these two concepts are complex and dense. But let us try to understand it in simple terms. Boethius made a distinction between these two kinds of necessities. Simply put, conditional necessity is something that happens as a result of human choice. A man choosing to walk is an example of conditional necessity. It is not tied to the nature, but it is dependent on certain state of affairs at a particular time. On the other hand, simple necessity is something that happens because it has to. In other words, it is tied to the nature itself. The motion of the sun is an example of simple necessity. Thus, Boethius proposed a solution to solve the conflict between free will and divine predestination based on 4 points. They were: 1. What one can know depends on the nature of the knower. 2. Eternity or timelessness is part of God's nature. As a result, God's knowledge of things is timeless knowledge. All things in time appear to him in a timeless moment. 3. If a human being sees someone do something, it does not mean that he is making that act necessary. Likewise, if God sees someone doing something, he is not making the act necessary. 4. Conditional necessity does not involve simple necessity. Thus, if God knows a deed will occur, it must occur, but that does not mean that the act of its own nature is necessary. God's knowledge creates conditional necessity, but not a simple necessity. The absence of simple necessity is what leaves room for free will. Thus, Boethius maintains that an act can be free even though God knows that it will happen. He concludes free will and foreknowledge are compatible. Boethius' importance and influences. Boethius' works contributed to the development of many areas of medieval philosophy. Throughout the Middle Ages, his translations of Aristotle and Porphyry remained standard. His commentaries served as rule for later logicians to understand the texts of Aristotle and the wider philosophical issues of the ancient tradition. His logical textbooks were used widely in the Middle Ages by students. His theological treatise offered a model for early medieval thinkers who wanted to use their logical training in thinking about Christian doctrine. From 13th century onwards, his works became less influential among medieval thinkers. However, Boethius, with his contributions in the field of theology and logic, made his mark in the history of Western philosophy. Let us summarize what we have discussed so far. Scholars regard Boethius as one of the most important intermediaries between ancient philosophy and the Latin Middle Ages. While it is true, he was also a major figure who actively contributed to the development of Western philosophy. His deep knowledge in Greek language helped him grasp the ideas of ancient philosophers more than his contemporaries could. Though he served as a Roman official in the heights of his career, he fell prey to the treachery of his fellow officials, was accused of treason and was executed. When he was imprisoned, he composed his masterpiece titled Consolation of Philosophy. In this work, Boethius dealt with a wide range of issues such as the transitory nature of fortune, the presence of evil and death. Apart from this masterpiece, he is also known for his translations, commentaries, theological treatises, and logical textbooks. Through his writings, he made two major philosophical contributions. Firstly, he introduced the problem of universals to the medieval world. Secondly, he attempted to solve the incompatibility of human free will and divine predetermination. His ideas on the problem of universals continued to influence philosophers throughout the Middle Ages. Now, you can try to answer the questions given here. Why do modern philosophers consider Boethius as a transmitter of ideas from ancient world to medieval world? What is the context in which Boethius wrote Consolation of Philosophy? What are the major themes discussed in Consolation of Philosophy? What is natural theology? Why is Consolation of Philosophy considered as a work reflecting natural theology? What was Boethius' solution to the problem of universals? What is the difference between simple necessity and conditional necessity? How did Boethius use these notions in his writings? For reference, you can go through the books listed here. Medieval Philosophy, The Oxford Illustrated History of Philosophy by Paul Vincent Spade, edited by Anthony Kenny, Oxford University Press, Oxford. Medieval Philosophy, Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy by Scott MacDonald and Norman Kretschmann, edited by E. Craig, Routledge, London. A History of Philosophy, Volume 2, Medieval Philosophy from Augustine to Duns Scotus by Frederick Copleston, The Newman Press, Westminster. Medieval Philosophy, The Encyclopedia of Philosophy by Desmond Paul Henry, Macmillan, New York. Encyclopedia of Medieval Philosophy, Philosophy between 500 and 1500, Volume 1, edited by Peter Adamson and Henrik Lagerlöf, Springer, New York. Medieval Western Philosophy, The European Emergence, Volume 9, by Patrick J. Aspel, Council for Research in Values, Washington. Hope that you have enjoyed this session. We can meet again with another topic. Thank you.